coming up on this episode of the Spiro Podcast.
But the feeling of being invincible can really bite you in the butt, because what we do when we think we have money is we spend it. And we typically, as a culture in 2024, we don't spend it that well.
Welcome to the Spiro Podcast, managing your real estate photography and videography business. With your hosts, Todd Kivimaki and Craig Magrum.
Hi, and welcome to the Spiro Podcast, managing your real estate photography and videography business. Spiro is a software platform designed to help you manage your day-to-day business and really help you grow and scale your real estate visual marketing company. I'm Craig Magrum, host of the podcast. Welcome to another week. If you're a regular listener, if you're a brand new listener, welcome. Like I said, the whole idea is to really help you grow and scale and manage your real estate media business. We're all about the business side of this industry. Lots of great resources out there on the creative side that, just really good information. But we like to talk about the business side and how to build a healthy business. Here to help me do that every week is Spiro owner and founder and co-host of the podcast, Todd Kivimaki. Welcome back to another week, Todd.
Oh, it's a great week to be here. It's great to be here this week. Both of those are true, but I'm glad to jump into this. It's a much needed topic, and it's not always one in the limelight, but it's one that if you ignore, there is going to be problems.
Yeah, for sure. And here in the States, we're, at least in the northern half of the country, we're headed into more the slower season. And, so things slow down a little bit. We've talked in some past episodes about, how do you manage and schedule your time when shoots are slower. So check out some of the old podcasts, past episodes of the podcast to help you during that time of the year. And Todd, you might notice for those of you watching on YouTube, normally I wear a collared golf shirt. That's just kind of my
This is a different.
I'm wearing a T-shirt today, and we'll try and describe this for those that are listening. But I was on social media, and I'm just, this is a rabbit trail, but I just want to make a public service announcement on behalf of the Thanksgiving holiday.
Okay.
So this is the second week in Thanksgiving, and I've already seen people say, now that Halloween's over, it's Christmas time. No, it is not. I'm a Thanksgiving purist, darn it. We got to give Thanksgiving its due. So in honor of that, I'm wearing a T-shirt. Those of you on YouTube, you might see this. There
First annual WKRP Thanksgiving Day Turkey Drop.
All right. Those of you familiar with the sitcom from the 1970s and 80s, WKRP in Cincinnati, there is a classic episode about a station promotion they did called the First Annual Turkey Drop. Absolutely hilarious episode. And Todd and I were talking before the episode here. He's never heard of WKRP in Cincinnati.
Yeah,
Todd.
I'm sorry. I'm really in the dark in this one. I don't know what this is.
You're not that much younger than me. I could have sworn, that you would know this classic American television sitcom.
I don't get a lot of TV or movies. I'm just not the guy that, Nick does that all the time in the office. He's like, hey, the movie of this and this. I'm like, Nick, I don't watch those things. Like, I'm sorry.
I'm going to send Todd the YouTube clip of this particular episode that is just classic Thanksgiving viewing material. So leave a comment. If you're familiar with this episode, leave a comment, and let's just razz Todd here a little bit. But
please. I'll watch the episode watch that clip like Mystery Science Theater 3000 or whatever it was. So you have my big head in the foreground, and
there you go.
You can get my reaction.
Yeah. So anyway, happy Thanksgiving, everybody. It's not Christmas time yet.
It's not. Okay.
It's not.
I agree
okay.
with you.
All right. Let's go ahead and dive into things. First of all, Spiro Updates. Anything you want to cover on that front?
We just pushed some good ones. I'm excited about new ones coming up. This is the Spiro podcast, so we got to give a shout out to the platform. But honestly, just being transparent, we want to grow out Spiro. If you are looking to streamline scale, we run a very large company off of it, and we have hundreds of other photographers that have come in. And again, I'm so blessed and just excited about that number. But we would love to have you in the system. We'd love to have an opportunity to show you how and why we do things different. It's taken 20 years to get here. There's a lot of reasoning behind all of it. And it works. I don't like to be conceited, but it works. So we'd love to have you in. And if not, thanks for being a listener.
Yeah, absolutely. If you are curious and want to learn a little bit more, be sure to stop by the website.
Oh, that's a new one.
Yeah.
I like that better, actually.
I don't even know what I said now. Anyway, stop by Spiro.media. You can sign up for a free account, check it out. And we give you, I believe it's 20 free credits or something to put some jobs through.
We have a kind of a simplified process that if you want to get in, and it's a setup program that we have. It's a free setup program we have with just a commitment to us. So you can talk to Nick, talk to Shannon on my team, talk to me, and we would love to tell you more.
Yeah, absolutely. You can drop us a line too at hello@spiro.media. All right. Anything else we want to hit before we dive into this week's topic?
I don't think so. Let's jump right in.
Cool. All right. So I think it was last episode, Todd, I mentioned, very interesting, compelling topics like business insurance and somebody did post, hey, that's a valid topic. Thank you. Thank you for validating my idea of the importance of talking about business insurance. And
Craig, either that you paid that person or that person's an insurance agent.
Right. Has a side gig as a real estate photographer.
And one of my best friends, an insurance agent. I love him to death. I mean, so I love insurance agents. I'm just saying it's insurance.
Yeah. So anyway, this is all about business. And okay, the numbers are a critical part of running a business, right? Crunching the numbers, having a good hold and understanding of your financials. So this week we wanted to talk about what does it take really to be a CFO of your company? Because ultimately, if you're small and you're growing, you're the one probably handling the numbers. Maybe you do have somebody that is acting as accountant or a CFO type role, but yeah, let's talk about numbers this week, Todd.
Yeah, this is a topic that we've strategically placed here at this time of year. Because I know if I come to you guys in July and like, hey, let's talk about doing your numbers and financials, you're going to be like, Todd, I just have way too much going on.
Right.
So strategically, I'm placing it right here. And I've seen some of you ask questions about now that it's getting slower. How do I time block? What do I do? There was a great question on the rep group the other day about referencing one of our podcasts, Craig, and talking about like, I'm just not that great at spending time on my business.
Yep.
And I actually gave this person a huge shout out because like, great, that's step one is identifying it. Mm-hmm. there was so many things that I did not identify in the history of my business that I was just like, who cares about that? Or I didn't even know about it. And then it hits you in the face and you're like, whoa, now I'm kind of behind the eight ball.
Right.
So I don't want you guys to be behind the eight ball in financials. And I know that this can be a heavy subject and a subject that typically, and I'm generalizing here, but our industry as creatives aren't typically connected to financials and math, right? I mean, is that fair to say, Craig?
That's fair. That was the thing I hated the most in my business. Saturday morning, having to do my books and invoicing and checking the P&L. Yeah, it's not real exciting.
Yeah, and it's not. It's exciting for some, but for us, it's not. It's like we want to go create something. We want to make something. We want to see something come together. So the way Craig opened this, though, was what it takes to be the CFO. So this has quite a bit of inspiration from a coach that gave this talk to me. And he started the conversation off by saying, hey, Todd, what does it take to be the CFO of your company? And, so I go through the natural things. And so thinking about, okay, well, I probably need to know probably a lot about the bank account or Excel, or I got to know what a credit is versus a debit, or I have to know what the P&L is. And every answer is like, no. And then he had to give me the answer. And he said, the one thing that's required to be the CFO of your company is time.
Okay.
I went, okay. I said the same thing, Craig. And I was like, okay, so what is it? So you need time, because if you ignore it, then we could get in a situation where something's going to bite you. And typically when we don't like something, we ignore it. And the financials aren't that scary. They really aren't, but you have to spend the time on them. And it's extra difficult to spend the time on them when you are behind. So let me rewind to probably, 14, 15 years ago at WOW. I was growing very rapidly. It was myself and about four or five other photographers, one admin, and I was literally the hub, the spoke on the wheel of my business, which was really dumb. But I took a lot of pride in it, and I thought, this is great that everybody needs me. And I felt good when people came to me for answers, and I would give them, or they came to me with questions, I'd give them answers. And one of the things that I just thought naturally was great for me to keep was, I'm going to make sure that I do the invoicing. Like, I want to make sure that I protect the books, and that is important. And it was something that I kept to myself. Now, this was prior to Spiro doing all of it for us now. So, I mean, literally, I had QuickBooks Desktop, and I would look back on my calendar, and I would manually type out. You remember? Did you do that too, Craig?
Yeah, when I first started, yeah. What a pain.
But there was nothing else. I mean, it was a different time. There was not the connected technology like there is now.
Right.
So it's a lot easier now. And if you're in a system, especially Spiro, this automates it for you. But I remember being 6 months behind on invoicing.
Ooh.
6 months.
Yeah, that's being behind an 8 ball.
Yeah. I mean, I don't know what I was doing in revenue. I was probably doing 300 or 400 grand in revenue a year. I mean, I was 150 grand behind. That was so dumb. Like, if I can think, if I look back at that, like, I'm so fortunate to get out of that. Because honestly, if I was an agent and you shot for me 6 months ago, I'd be like, screw you. Like, seriously?
Invoice me on time.
Yeah. Or I'd pay it and I'd be like, I'm never going to use you again. Like, I can't do business like this. That house closed 3 months ago. And I wasn't spending the time because in my mind, I was growing very quick. I was like, I've got to get to the shoots and I've got to get the editing done. If the client's taken care of, I'm happy. And I got very lucky and missed a huge financial bomb. It didn't go off for me. So it was at that point that I realized I needed help. I hired someone, this individual helped me scale the company to be very large, and he did all of those financials. But the thing about it is I knew that he was spending the time on it. So this could be you, this could be someone that you really trust. But even if you have someone that you trust to do your billing, you're still the CFO of your company.
True.
So none of us really have businesses large enough, maybe one or two of us. Our business at WOW, and we do millions of dollars in revenue a year, we're not big enough to have a CFO, like a full-time CFO position. I still act as a CFO. I have a consultant that helps me, and I have a billing person that helps me. I have 2 leaders that consult and are in the books with me. So I have help, but I am still the CFO, the chief financial officer of the company. Because at the end of the day, I need to make sure that everybody can get paid. The money's in the bank. If something happens, it's accounted for, that we have enough revenue coming in. We're meeting our goals and all of that stuff.
Right.
So, and if that sounds scary to you, you just need to spend a little bit of time with it. That's really the biggest thing. Craig, you mentioned at the top of the show, you spent some time on it.
Yeah. So, like you, during the week, I was busy with shoots and setting up appointments. Like you, I was kind of the hub. It was myself and one other photographer. I had a much smaller business. So yeah, I was handling everything. And during the week, I didn't have time to work on my financials during the week. those are business hours. My evenings I was trying to guard for my family. So I would get up early on Saturday mornings, and that's when I would spend my time working on my financials and invoicing and everything. So yeah, let's start right at the very basics. So if time is the requirement to be an effective CFO, how do you structure your day, generally speaking? I know it's going to be a little bit different for everybody, but what are your suggestions?
Yeah. So the way that I personally do it, and then I'll give you what the suggestion was of the coach who's, consulted me on this, was I personally am spending time knowing what we're doing each day from a shoot perspective. So in Spiro, I'm on the on-site tracking page. I generally have a good idea of the number of shoots we're doing and where we're tracking the goal. So that's connected to revenue coming in. And I know if we're up or down. And I've done it long enough that I have a good enough sense of where we're at just by those numbers. Of course, the metrics dashboard, I generally click on that second in the morning, every morning, and I just confirm where we're at. And that, I believe, is very important because that is our pulse. Mm-hmm. And we need to make sure that we know what our pulse is. Are we down? That's okay. We need to identify it and we can do things to get up. Are we up? Okay, great. What led to that? Will that lead to more investment? Will that lead to just us making profit? And one thing I know I've learned from myself that when we're up in numbers, I have to be careful about what I do because I begin to feel like I'm invincible. As we start to build a business, you can get your baby, the business off the ground, and then you're doing some money. And say you've replaced the money that you were making at your full-time job that you now have quit. And then you bring someone on and the money goes up, or you're just really hustling and the money goes up, and you start to feel like, okay, this works. And kudos to you. Not many people in the world do that. That's a tough thing to do, to get a business off the ground and to take the leap of faith.
Right.
But the feeling of being invincible can really bite you in the butt, because what we do when we think we have money is we spend it. And we typically, as a culture in 2024, we don't spend it that well.
How so? What do you mean by that?
Well, look at social media. We're all influenced by social media. When I scroll, at least what pops up for me are typically somebody in a very expensive car, somebody with a very expensive watch. I get a lot of basketball on there because I hit the algorithm hits me with basketball, business advice. But the world shows that to be successful, you need to have a $10,000 watch. You need to have a $100,000 G-Wagon. You need to have all of these other things, the house, the cars. No, that is not it. If that's your goal, that's okay, but don't do it when you're a one-man band making $25K a month.
Right.
That's when it's going to bite you in the butt, because $25K as a one-man band, yes, that's a lot of money for you to make. You're working 90 hours a week. And if you ever want to get off that hamster wheel, you're going to have to hire. And when you hire, that $25K goes really quick.
Yeah.
So I suggest that you devote some time. So I look at those financial figures every morning, and then I'm usually in our financial software, and we use QuickBooks. I'm usually in it about 3 times a week.
Okay.
Now, my coach suggests that you should spend 15 minutes every morning just knowing what you're spending. And so the reason, and I think there's a lot of value behind that, the reason why is because you need to have a instant pulse on what's going out and what's coming in. Mm-hmm. And that is the kind of antidote to our Superman feeling. Oh, Craig, you like what I did there? You see that whole Superman thing worked. And I'm not even a movie guy.
I missed it. I'm going to be honest. I totally missed it.
Kryptonite to Superman?
Oh,
maybe it wasn't correct.
Okay.
Anyways, that was terrible. Justine put a wah. But when you go to the bank account, I've done this, and you're like, okay, cool, I got some money in there. And then your credit card payment paid, and your house payment went out, and your car payment went out. how many of you had that drop in your chest? Like, oh crap, whoa.
Yeah.
Like, oh, there went that much money.
That drops quick.
Yeah. And the numbers get bigger as you grow. It's not atypical for us to have a $25,000 credit card bill, one or two of those a month, every month at WOW. So as you grow, those numbers get bigger, and just knowing what's in your bank account is important because that brings you back to reality.
Okay. So 15 minutes a day, 3 times a week, roughly. Mm-hmm. So moving beyond that, then what is the process for financials? What's the process you go through as a CFO?
So what we do is first we categorize all transactions inside of QuickBooks. So I guess let me just back up a little bit, because if you're not in a system right now, what the idea of a system is, like a QuickBooks or a Xero, or there's other financial systems, or even a spreadsheet. If you have a spreadsheet, it does the same thing. It works great. I had a question a week ago, like, is it time for me to go to QuickBooks? I'm using the spreadsheet. I'm using a spreadsheet and maybe I need QuickBooks. It's like, no, the spreadsheet's great because you know what's on there. So I'm not saying you need to use QuickBooks, but what QuickBooks does is it allows you to input all of your accounts. So your credit cards and your bank accounts. Mm-hmm. And from there, when you spend money, you swipe your credit card or tap your credit card, that transaction comes into QuickBooks and it sits there as what they call uncategorized.
Right.
Also, the same happens for credits in your bank account. Say Stripe or Square sends money to your bank account, and now your bank account has that extra money from those shoots. It comes in, and that's categorized into revenue. So what you're doing and what we do, and we do this on a daily basis. So Jesse in our billing department daily categorizes transactions where it's like, what did we spend? What was it for? And that is super important. Even if it's $1.50 at a gas station, you need to know what you're spending and what was it for. So that's the categorization of the transactions. And that's step one. So step two then is to potentially reduce some of those. And just some things to look out for here is like, do you have 3 Netflix subscriptions, like on accident? Like, oh shoot, yeah, I actually signed up with a different email address. I've been paying Netflix times 3 for the last 2 years. Like, look down there. Is there anything that has taken you by surprise? Like, oh crap, I didn't know I was going to spend that much on that breakfast for the brokerage presentation. And then what your brain's going to do is like, okay, maybe we don't buy Panera. Maybe we buy something else. Right. So that is the idea of, what did I spend? Am I okay with that? Or do I need to look at how I can maximize the spending power? So that's the other thing that seeing this will help you do. I saw it. Oh, I'm not happy with that. Okay, what am I going to do about it now? But at least you know. So after all that's done, a lot of systems QuickBooks makes it very easy for you to review your P&L. And that's your profit and loss statement. And that gives you the true health of your business.
Okay, so you have the P&L statement, Todd. What do you do with that, though? What do you do with that data?
Yeah, great question, Craig. So basically, at the end of the day, this data allows you to anticipate your financials. Okay. So just the quick breakdown of a P&L. It's just a chart, and at the top of the chart is the revenue. So that's the money coming into your business. Mm-hmm. And then below that are the first categories of your expenses. And those are your cost of goods. Right. Okay. So cost of goods for our business, you're looking at your photographer cost, and you're looking at your editing cost, anything associated to the product. Right. So all of that's in there. You'll have like you'll put your Spiro cost in there because that has to do with the delivery out to the client. So that is your cost of goods. That's how much it costs to make your product. Now, just as a side tangent here, if you are a solo photographer, what I suggest you do is you account for paying yourself as a photographer.
Yes.
Craig, did you do that when you had C?
I did.
Why was that important to you? Why was that important to you?
Because you can do what's called a member draw, and I could draw as much as I wanted, right, as owner, and pay myself whatever I wanted. But I knew I needed to discipline myself and give myself a paycheck that was regular and expected and budgeted, because, eventually I would add another photographer. So I needed to keep track of what am I paying myself and what am I going to pay another photographer as well. It just, if you don't categorize it, at least to me, then it's the Wild West in your financials. And you got to be disciplined enough to know what am I going to pay myself? How does that fit into the budget of my business?
Yeah, for sure. And because it's unrealistic to think that if you hide your photographer cost, if you're a solo photographer, that shows up essentially on the P&L as a free to you. Like even if you take the member draw that Craig said, the draw does not show up on the P&L.
Right.
That comes on the cash flow statement, on your income statement. So that draw does not show up on the P&L. So essentially, if you're counting on all of that and you're like, hey, I made $100,000 and those were all photographer fees, you're just kidding yourself. You're playing a game there.
Yeah.
So go ahead.
Real quick, we're starting to throw around some accounting type terms. And before I started my business and right at the beginning of when I started my company, accounting is like the absolute worst thing in the world to me. I hate crunching numbers. When I was in college, I took accounting 1 and 2 and talked with my counselor at the university about how I hated those classes. And I was an information systems major at the time. And they kind of chuckled and said, well, if you're going to be doing information systems, you're going to be writing business programs to solve business math issues. You might want to think about maybe changing if you hate this. And so that was like the biggest fear I had in starting my own business was I had to do my own accounting. I mean, I can run a basic budget, for our home and whatnot. So I started with that. But if you're kind of lost, if you're like me and you hate accounting, try and find some online sources on basic accounting, brush back up on that stuff to get familiar with the terms, with the ideas behind it. And you can do it. I mean, if I can do it, I wasn't great at it, but I learned refreshed enough that I was able to run my books on my business. Now, probably not as well as a trained accountant or something like that, but I just started hearing all the terms we were using, Todd, and I thought, there's resources out there. Start searching YouTube videos on basic accounting and just brush up on that stuff. Yeah.
Yeah. And if that's something that you want to know more about, let us know. I think Craig would love to teach a class on that. We'll do it online.
Shut up, Todd. Okay. I just realized this is my boss I just said shut up to. My apologies, but no. We don't want to do that. Do not email me. Do not call me. No, I'm not going to train you on accounting.
Oh, that's funny. But seriously, if that's something that you're like, I'd love to do that. Like I'll do a webinar on it. We'll do a Todd training on one of our Thursdays. Let me know. I'd be happy to do that. Just knowing where you're at and where we want to go, because this actually gets much simpler when you see it. Like your P&L is how much money did you make? You subtract what it cost to make the product. You subtract what it costs to run a business, your cell phone, things like that. And then at the end of the day, you have some money left over, hopefully. That's really how simple it can be.
It goes back to the discipline of spending the time on the financials and making sure you are categorizing expenses. And again, it's not fun, but you got to make the time for it. So it goes back to the basic idea that your coach shared with you. The number one requirement for being a CFO is putting the time into it.
Yeah, true.
Yeah.
True.
Okay.
So that's what the P&L is. But the bigger idea is it allows you to anticipate your financials. That is the true health of your business with a couple other statements, but the P&L is really the big one. And that's the most important one for you at this point.
Right.
So just a couple of quotes here, Craig, that I received from various coaches, and I think they're super important. But one coach told me, be patient for growth, but impatient for profits.
Okay. Let's dive a little bit deeper on that. Okay. So
because that can be somewhat controversial, because I hear
and almost contradictory as well.
Can be. Yes, it can be.
Yeah. Okay.
So I was talking to someone the other day, and they had a business, and it had nothing to do with real estate media, but they had a business and they were going for, I think, about 2 years now. And she had this business, and she's basically, the business is making money, but she's not pulling any salary or owner draws from it.
Yeah.
And she was kind of prideful when she was like, yep, it's all going back into the business, going to build the business. And I was like, okay, well, that is, there's some merit in that at some point. But remember, why did you start your business?
Right. There should be some financial benefit to yourself for that.
There should be, yes. Yeah, it needs to be able to support you. And I honestly don't believe in the whole game. I know it works, but if you look at like the realm of like investments, and especially with technology companies, we'll use one of my favorites, Zillow. Little joke there. But Zillow has never made any money. They've lost billions of dollars over the years. And they have this idea that it's going to pay off in the end. And it might, but that's a brain, and it might not. But that's a point, that's a brainwave, or that's an idea that I just don't understand. Like, I don't get, like, let me lose money for 10 years to hope to really strike it big.
Right.
So, and maybe that's just beyond my capabilities of thinking, but I've been programming, I've bootstrapped everything to where it's like, I'm okay. I'm comfortable putting my money out there, but I want to get it back. Like, right. I really like that money. And I've shared this before. Like, money it's a driving reason why I started my businesses.
Sure. Yeah.
Like, I don't want that money to go away. I worked really hard to get that money.
It's a tool.
It is a tool. So It's important to make profits. And if you're just saying, hey, I'm going to make profits, then at some point you got to set a deadline. And I'll be completely transparent. Like, let me give you guys a little insight to WOW. So WOW, we've done, in the millions of dollars of revenue, and we've grown over the last 20 years, but we've been doing in the millions of dollars of revenue for probably over 10 years. And all that time, I felt like I was making good money personally. I set the salary I wanted to make, and I would increase the salary, and we would grow the team. And then we bought buildings, we had an office and things like that. But I never really made a lot more money. And I was under the impression of like, hey, I'm happy. I set my salary where I need to be. And we live a great life, my wife, my family, and I. So I'm completely comfortable with that. I could save what I wanted to save. I can invest what I wanted to invest. We would do what we would want to do within reason. And I felt like I was not lacking at all there. And it wasn't until last year that it was a little bit of a shakeup year for us at WOW. It was a tough year for us. And what happened was, one, we were very bloated in positions, because as we grew at WOW, when we added people, we saw more growth. So my brain went, okay, cool. This is an opportunity. We need a person to do it, and I'm going to see growth. Well, I found out that doesn't always work. So we just had too many people. Things broke down, and communication, we were bloated. We had too many chefs in the kitchen. And the market, so that was factor number one. Number two was the market. Our listings were down in our markets. It was a tough year in our markets. And then number 3, we ticked off a big client and we lost $250,000 a year in revenue.
Yeah.
Okay. So 3 things compiled. And I had this, oh crap moment. like the day I lost $250,000, like that was a bad day.
Yeah.
So there's always good from bad. And honestly, my team pulled around me, and my team did this. We got together. We had some really tough conversations. We literally looked at every single line item. We looked at every single time we swiped that credit card, and we decided what we would need. We cut things out. We canceled subscriptions. We got crafty with other things. We made do with much less.
Right.
And in the end, it was an okay year for us. We actually still made money. Like at the end of the year, everybody got paid and we still made a little bit of money. But what that allowed us to do this year is we worked our butts off last year. The team literally worked their butts off, and the numbers coming in have gone up.
Right.
So we've overcome, so point number 1 is in that transition year, people left wow. And I think God did it for me. We didn't actually fire one person. We didn't have to let one person go because we didn't have the revenue. Just things came into their life and they had a different opportunity, and the team got much smaller. So that's wages that are out, and wages are by far one of our largest expenses. Number 2, the market came back. And number 3, all that hard work that the team put in now over accounted for the big account we lost and then some. So now we're in a year at WOW where we have far less overhead with wages, and the revenue came back. We're much more efficient. And this is finally the first time I'm going, oh, like I could have made this money all 20 years.
Yep.
So I say that because if you think where you're at now is great, I'm happy for you, but just don't do what I did and think that growth just means continuing to add people or whatever you're doing now. There's a book that's called What Got You Here Won't Get You There.
Yeah, I've heard of that one.
Did you hear it? Yeah, and it's a great book. It's a short read, but I made the dumb mistake of thinking I'm just going to keep doing the same thing. And it's going to continue to get me. But I hit that wall. And I was like, oh, wait a minute. There's some things I didn't know. And I was mistaken about some of these things. So as you grow, you just have to be careful and always identify what is helping you grow and then what is not helping you grow.
That's good.
So just a couple things. I'm going to wrap us up, Craig, because I love some more of these quotes here. But a coach told me, when you're climbing up the mountain, throw some dirt in the valley for when you fall.
Oh, never heard that one.
Neither had I. He said it. I was like, oh, holy crap. And like 2023 flashed before my eyes. The thing that I did one smart thing over the years. I saved money. I knew where my money was at because money was important to me. I knew where money was at.
Yeah.
I had a nest egg. I had some money left over and I knew where I could go get money. So one thing I want to talk to you, and this is maybe the most important part of the podcast, this one. And if you're glazed over, wake back up, put the windows down if you're in your car, because this could potentially help save your business if you have a year like a 2023 and I had. So what a coach of mine called this, and again, shout out to the coach, but he called it your money wheel. And he was like, well, what's your money wheel? I'm like, I don't know what a money wheel is. You know how coaches can be like these crazy terms. Like, I don't know what a money wheel is. Haven't we talked about financials long enough? Like, can we talk about something else?
Right.
And he's like, okay, everybody has one. I'm like, I don't have a money. Like, it's not a money tree. It's not what is a money wheel? So your money wheel is basically, and this is in my words, not his, so they're not going to be as great, but your money wheel is where you have assets or money to go and get when you need it. So that quote about when you're climbing the mountain, that's what we're all trying to do, right? We're trying to climb that mountain to grow our business. You have to throw some dirt or some money in the valley for when you fall. You're going to fall. I don't want to be I'm not a pessimist by nature.
That's what I was thinking. I was like, man, that sounds really pessimistic, but it's realistic. We all go through it.
You're going to fall. And even falling might just mean you need to hire 3 people. Like that, you need the money in the valley. Because if you're climbing the mountain of revenue and you're doing $20K a month by yourself right now, when you hire the staff that you really should have, that $20K, like I said, is going to go really quick. You better put some of that money in the valley because you have to pay people to do it.
Right.
Or you're going to go crazy. You're going to literally have a nervous breakdown from working 90 hours a week.
Right.
So I want you to think about right now, just wherever you're at, if you're at a place where you're able to write down, where would you go if you needed money? So a couple of potential places, like could you go to your savings account or checking account? Or do you have $7 in there? Okay, that's okay. Some of us, you don't have to keep money in those accounts. You keep it elsewhere. But if you needed money, could you go to your savings account? Do you have investments where you could pull money out? Is it an unqualified investment, meaning that it didn't have tax implications, tax savings? Like, could you just pull that money out and not get penalized? Or is it a 401k? Is it a retirement and you pull the money out? What would you get penalized if you pulled that money out?
Right.
What about a loan, business line of credit? Do you have a business line of credit? Do you know how to get a business line of credit? What about a home equity line? Do you own a home? Could you get a home equity line? Do you have something sitting there waiting for you? What assets do you have? So assets are things that you own that you have money in there with, like, meaning, do you own your car? And is your car, could you get a loan from a bank for 10 grand for your car if you needed it? Do you have an office building? Do you have a boat? Do you have anything else? Those are all assets. So do you have any assets? The next one is, do you have investors? Do you know investors? Do you have a network of people? And probably the more simplified and what we all have is friends and family. Like if you needed money, do you have friends and family you could go to? Because you're going to hit a point where you're going to need some money for your business. So it's important, if you needed $100, where are you going to go and get it? Okay. So, you need a new piece of equipment, a small piece of equipment, it might be, I don't know what equipment's $100, but $100, where would you get it? $500, where would you go and get $500 if you needed it right now? And I'm like, seriously, think about this. Where could you get $500 at right now if you needed it? Your photographer calls, hey, lens broke. What would you do in that case? Do you have the $500, or would you have to charge it on a credit card? You need to go ask mom or dad.
Yeah.
And then let's take it up a little bit. I think you guys see where I'm going here, but I truly want you to think about this. What if you needed $3,000? Okay, you hire a photographer. You got about $3, $4, $5,000 of equipment. Where would you go and get that $5,000? There's an opportunity coming your way. Where would you go get $10,000? Say there's a company in town and you know this individual and they're a competitor, but you've been friendly with them. And say they come to you and they're like, hey, Todd, I'm at a point to where my wife and I are going to move out of state. And I'm done running this business here. This is what it brings in. I'm easily making about $50K a year, even after the photographers are called, are paid. Like, would you give me $10,000 for my business? Now, thinking about that. So Craig, in that idea, like say the books all work out and this is a turnkey solution that you're going to make $50,000 from. Is spending $10,000 for that a pretty good deal?
I'd say that's a good ROI.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
But the thing about it is, if you don't have that $10,000, that opportunity means nothing to you.
Right.
And if that business owner goes out and asks 3 other business owners and it takes you a month to get that 10 grand, you have just lost that opportunity.
Right.
So you have to have your money ready. You just simply have to.
You gotta make the time to have the plan in place already.
Mm-hmm. You do. So just to wrap up here, I want you guys, and I know this is not the most interesting topic, although I'll argue that it's more interesting than insurance, just because.
But I agree. It's an important one. This is business, right?
This is. I want you to prepare now. Because typically when you need money, it's much harder to get.
Yeah.
It takes much longer to get. Then if that opportunity comes in, I want you all to get it. Give me 10 grand to make 50. I want you guys to be able to write a check for that or know, hey, I can get it to you in one day, or I'll get you that money right now. Because I want you all to be ready for that opportunity when it comes. Because they do not come very often. And your money can make you money. But you have to protect it. You have to be prepared, and you have to know where you're at. As scary as that can sound, you are the CFO of your business. Take 15 minutes, 3 days a week, and then on Friday or Saturday, spend 30 minutes or 60 minutes. That's all you need to do. I'll give you a Tony Robbins quote here.
All right.
So Tony said, the winter's coming. So the winter is coming. And when winter comes, I want to have a parka. And if I don't need it, then I'll just leave it on the ground. That's what your money wheel will do for you. If it's cold out there, and it's getting cold in Ohio. I was walking into Panera this morning, and it was 40 something here, 42, 43. But it was like
Fahrenheit for those of you listening.
Yeah. Fahrenheit.
In other countries.
But the wind was like 30 or 40 miles an hour, and it was a cold wind now in Ohio. And I was like, oh my goodness, it was cold. I didn't get my jacket out yet. Like when winter comes, I hate being cold. I want to have a parka so I can put that thing on. And you know what? If it's warm and sunny outside and I don't need the parka, I'm just going to leave it on the side. Mm-hmm. But I know that it's there, that I have it. Yes.
Right.
So please, please, please protect your money. Know where your money's at. Understand where your money wheel is at. This could save your business. This could make your business money for when that opportunity comes. And it's rare. I can think back of a handful of times along the way where I was like, okay, I have that money ready. I am good to go. Let's continue on, and we'll take that opportunity and run with it.
There you go. The key to what's required to be an effective CFO of your business. Todd, good stuff. Thanks for diving into that this week.
Oh, my pleasure. I'm sorry I don't mean to be preaching to y'all, but I honestly, it's a super important part. I care for you guys. Yeah. I don't want this to come blindsided to you.
Right. This really is kind of the crux of the whole podcast. We want to see successful businesses, and you have to dive into again, as creatives, what most of us probably consider dry stuff. You got to dive into it to know it, to be able to continue to run your company and grow it and scale it. And make it work for you. So learn the hard stuff, learn the dry stuff, and execute on the hard and dry stuff. Yeah. It will be worth it. It will be worth it. Todd, thank you. Appreciate it.
My pleasure.
All right. Well, that's going to wrap it up this week. Again, I'm going to preach a little bit on Thanksgiving. We always tell you at the end of the podcast, make sure you take time to be thankful for the blessings in your life, especially this month here in the U.S. As we get ready to celebrate the Thanksgiving holiday. And make sure you take a breath, but use that breath to also plan your CFO activities. All right. You guys have a great week. We love you. We appreciate you. And we'll see you next week. Take care.
Thank you for joining us for the Spiro Podcast, Managing Your Real Estate Photography and Videography Business. This is a production of Spiro and Wow Video Tours. You can find out more about Spiro's real estate media business management software at our website, spiro.media.